be permittable or work in this particular context. And with so much focus on the gully and calling it a gully project and the like, it didn't actually address the larger scale problem, which was that we didn't have enough information. And I say we, and I invoke, the rivers and wetlands program staff too. We didn't have enough information in the conceptual design as presented to say that this was a project that could be funded if it was focused really on the gully, which was what was the way it was communicated to us initially. Subsequently, because of the continued advocacy of Hillary, myself, and others, because we saw the potential value of doing a larger restoration project at this site that may include the gully, but that would also address the flow of, well, it would identify and give us some more information to understand how water is moving across this particular parcel from the mountain around the gully and invoking the adjacent field that was being hayed but is no longer where the solar farm is being proposed now. It's just we don't really have enough information to make a good decision about what kind of project would move forward and what the phosphorus crediting would be. So some of the points that were being raised by the rivers program staff were unique to that program, an exchange across of water across basins, and a few other things were highlighted that really led us to a place where we just want to have a better design and an alternatives analysis in place to inform our decision making about whether we move to the next stage of design and then implementation or not. So it's sort of expanding the scope of the project to contemplate a wetland restoration and or a floodplain restoration that hopefully would address the gully that is, growing at a pretty rapid rate, as Hillary commented.
So does this have anything to do with the policy, the funding policy, if I remember correctly, the funding policy talks about the fact that you can't address a gully if you're not addressing modifications to upstream flow that have caused the gullying to occur. Is that correct? And is that what made this is that part of the reason that this was not deemed fundable?
Chris, are you answering that question?
Well, I don't want to step on Angie's toes. Angie is. Do you want to?
No, Chris, if you have something to add, please hop in there. It's fine.
Yeah, from a strict policy point of view, the funding policy gives permission to you all on which projects can be developed. And there's a list. And if your project isn't one of those types, then you can't spend money. And the only gully type project that can be funded is a gully connected to developed lands. And this is not that. So as a gully project, it's not fundable. And what Hillary has done is she's looked at another project type, basically, and trying to solve this as a wetlands floodplain restoration, which is fundable. So it's looking at this as, not a hydrologist. I've talked to people who are hydrologists, and I hear the words that they've said to me. This is a complicated, system of water that's flowing through this property. And, we just don't fund ag gullies or whatever you want to call this because of the complications related to that. But if you can deal with the water flow, and I think that's what Hillary is trying to propose here, you might indirectly be able to deal with the gully. So to answer your question, it was the wrong project type.
So, and sorry, Chris, I'm trying to get at the policy a little bit because I know that you guys are contemplating policy changes right now on that one, and this one has run into the policy a little bit. And so the policy, the idea, the rationale for the policy that you can only address gullies in developed lands is that gullies outside of developed lands are probably the result of an agricultural ditch, and we don't want to be putting money towards remedying the instabilities created by agricultural ditches, which I think maybe it's perfectly fine rationale. I'm just trying to understand it.
Like this is like hearsay. You're hearing what I've heard from somebody else, so it's not the best. It'd be better to have it heard. And Angie, you might be better suited at this, but what I've understood, and maybe it's good to hear it from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about because I'm interpreting it, right? Like maybe it's good to hear that, like from a fresh eyes point of view. Gullies are a symptom, not a cause of a problem. They're resulting of something happening with the water flow. So addressing that doesn't address what's happening upstream. And then even like for this particular gully, if you were to put in bank stabilization, whatever you did to stabilize it, it could still erode, right? Because you're not dealing with the upstream water issues. And one thing that we saw when we went on site and we looked at a map is we actually think this gully might be a result of water actually being redirected, which is one of the policies that we're citing as like the problem. Like you don't want to redirect water, but this might actually be caused by redirected water in the first place, which is why the gully is there. So looking at the source of the water that was redirected and maybe trying to keep it on site and develop the wetland a little bit more, which might then solve the gully, might be the solution. It comes down to, it's water goes where it wants to go. So it's a little complicated. So I think I'm a little over my skis when I say, the reason we don't deal with gullies is because sometimes you just can't stop water from going where it wants to go. But that's my understanding, being a non-science, non-hydrologist.
Okay, thanks. I guess I'm just wondering what differentiates the agricultural setting from the developed setting. Is there a presumption that in the developed setting we can't change the water, the alterations to the water that happened long ago and on what now is a developed landscape, so we can't address those upstream causes of the symptom, and we can't really get at the original cause. And whereas in agricultural settings we still have an opportunity to do that. So we're pushing ourselves to focus upstream on the cause and not just address the symptom. Is that a logical?
I would need to defer
No,
to Angie on that
I'm
one.
not sure that logic, Shane, like, I'm not sure that logic tracks actually, because what's presented as the only fundable gully project type, and it's not even a project type, it's the only way we can address gullies currently with the funding policy as written, is if they're caused by stormwater upstream that we can address before we implement the gully restoration piece of the project. And that's sequencing, because we have to take care of the source of the water that's causing the gully feature. And that I have an example of a subdivision, for example, that has a detention pond that's out of compliance. It's a 3-acre parcel, and there's a gully downstream that's going into a main stem of a river in one of my basins. We can't do anything using clean water funds to address that gully feature until that subdivision is brought into compliance, because it's a 3-acre site and that stormwater source has not been addressed yet, but is being worked on, is being moved forward. So that project is addressing the cause, and once that happens, the sequence follows that we can then address the gully downstream, because there will no longer be source water coming from a stormwater issue upstream contributing to or exacerbating the gully feature downstream. So I
So
think that's
Angie,
why. Yeah, go ahead.
so I guess I'm just wondering why you can't apply the same sequencing here and still treat the gully as long as you're treating the upstream problems first. Why we had to
Well,
change the name of this project to a stream restoration.
I think in effect, that's what's contemplated by getting a better design, is that we will understand how water is moving across the parcel, have a better understanding and some alternatives, and pick the best alternative that will likely address the gullying as well. But right now, we just don't have enough information to go on to be able to say for certain, for example, how much phosphorus this might reduce, and exactly which project type it will end up being ultimately. But
I'm just going to hop
recasting the
in.
project in that way, I think, does um, uh, cast it in such a light that we can contemplate moving the project forward with clean water funds, at least to the 60% design step.
Okay. So last question from me, I promise. What our initial proposal was for what, a 30% design? What were we proposing the first time around that was deemed not to be fundable?
It was a 30% design, and I used the same dollar amount because I felt like we had a couple 30% designs that went out around that price point, 30 some $1,000, and it felt high. So I was hoping that the alternatives design at 60% could be done in that price range. And that at first we weren't, I don't know that we were thinking we were coming back to the BWIC. So that was just the amount that had been approved for us. So there is yeah, I don't know if I want to borrow. There's a slight chance. Yeah, I mean, I think that should be enough money. You might see us again, but hopefully not, because we don't really know what the crediting is going to look like. So it's a little hard to know
Yeah,
what we have to work with here.
yeah, there's
In
some,
fact, if we move on to other slides, you'll see there's a lot of blanks and question marks. I think we can,
go past that one.
yeah.
There,
There
That's-
we have blanks and
that's
question
pretty-
marks. And then wetlands are and stream sector are the same in the same cost category.
right.
And there's some pictures. That's from this spring. That's from our visit that Angie, you and Chris were at. That's the up, it's kind of the upstream section of the gully. Yeah, there's the
Mhm.
budget. I think we've kind of talked through all of these pieces, but let us know if you have any, I mean, we have Angie here at least.
Is upstream of the head cut, is that tiled?
I don't know. So I talked to the
Mm.
farmer today that farms that, and I talked to the landowner, and the farmer was wondering, they didn't mention the upstream property, but they were kind of wondering if there was like leaky tiles contributing to this in the property we were on. So that would be a question that maybe we could answer through this next step.
Okay.
I haven't seen them, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Yeah, so it's hard to do the
So I-
cost benefit without the phosphorus. And it was a big range. The plan that Andres had quite a range. So there's potential. I mean, that if we could stop some of that flow of sediment out of the gully, our phosphorus reductions could be fairly high. But we just don't know what the results will look like for this, what ends up being designed.
Yeah, and that's why the local importance score is high there, 10 out of 10, because of the connection to the Polteny River. The co-benefits, just go through those quickly. Let's see, the climate and flood.
Did-
That was 1 out of 3.
Did you
Ecos-
guys, sorry to interrupt you, Barbara, but you
Yeah.
guys have been asking about doing the co-benefits, like, did you still want to, like, did you want to do those together as a group? Like, we went through and gave it a kind of a cursory score, but does everybody still have copies of the co-benefits, like procedure and scoring matrix? And would it help if we sent that out for the next meeting?
Yeah, it'd be good to see the matrix.
Okay, because really you guys are
Yeah,
supposed to
agreed.
come up with the score, and we used to go through it together, and it always took a really long time, and people asked if we could just do like an initial score and present it to you. So that was in the staff review, and I'll just hold up I don't know if you can see it, but there's kind of different points for different things and all the different categories. But I'll send that back out to everybody.
Yeah, 8
So there's-
categories. Yeah, 20
There's like
points
2 to
total.
3 things in each category, and it gets a point if it has, any one of those things. So the score is from 0 to 3, 0 to 2 on a couple of categories, and 0 to 3 on a couple. But it has to have all the 3 things to get the 3 points. That's why the scores are, like 6 and 9 are good scores. Like that means they have an actual 6 or 9 extra sort of co-benefits. Sorry, Barbara, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. So there was 6 out of 20 points there. They were fairly low. The ecosystem importance, which includes surface waters and wetlands, got 3 out of 3. But all the
I
other
would say they were high. Barbara and I have. Barbara likes them to be like 20s. I'm like, if they're above 3, they're high. Co-benefits, they can't have 20 co-benefits.
So the criteria are climate and flood resilience, ecosystem improvement, upland areas, which doesn't really apply here, ecosystem improvement, surface water, local pollution prevention, environmental justice and local economic support, recreation and community assets, community and partner support, and other environmental benefits. So we don't have a total score here for this project because there are so many unknowns.
I just realized I misspelled a word and it gets an extra point because it's a trial project with DEC, not a trail project in the staff review.
So I think that's all our slides, Erin.
All right. Does anyone want to make a motion on this one? Dan, if you come off mute.
Good. That'd be good to get off mute. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve this project.
Great, I'll second that. All in favor, you can do hands or aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed
Sarah,
or any
Sarah, are you raising?
abstain? I think Sarah was raising her hand for aye.
The vote,
That was an
okay,
aye.
sorry.
Any abstain? Cool. Then we will move this one forward. Interesting to see what design alternatives come out for this one. Gullies are not easy.
Yes.
Sorry, trying to find agenda amongst all my tabs. So next up for review is the North Breton Brook riparian planting.
Yes, and Sadie's here also to answer questions. But yes, that's a tree planting in an area that's currently pasture along North Breton Brook. It's a landowner that hasn't really participated in many state or federal programs, and we just started working with them. And so they are sort of wanting to dip their toe in and maybe try out a project. And then if it's successful, I think that would actually open the door for them working with, you know, other partners. They're working a little bit with Agency of Ag and just the tiniest little bit with NRCS, but they're a little bit unsure about that relationship. So we're excited. The district's had some good luck working with them recently. And it looks like Sadie might want to, Sadie, if you want to actually present the project itself, I'm happy to let you do that. I saw her.
So the project itself, I think Hillary mentioned it was formerly pasture. They recently changed some of their fencing around there, and it is at 2.63 acres. Most of that is riparian area, and then a little bit of upland for that drainage. That's kind of on the west side of the planting project. And we would be hoping to put probably 900 stems in or so, kind of following our 350 per acre standard. And ideally we were putting in this fall. They are excited about the project. And yeah, we have a essentially a signed agreement with them if the project is moved forward already in place. And planting would take place this fall, end of October.
And 6.49 kilograms of phosphorus per year. That's good.
And it would work. We did 2 other tree planting projects through this funding this spring, and that was the district as the implementer. So this project would work the same way. I think it went fairly smoothly in the spring with that separation. So this project would be the same way.
So does the budget include any funding for O&M, or is that a thing that would come afterwards?
Afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't included O&M costs in our upfront project costs yet, like as a QUISP. We haven't done that. I know other QUISPs are talking about that. Especially with tree plantings. We do have the district has some funds to do maintenance on this site for a couple of years. So that would help, that would help kind of alleviate that issue that other QUISPs are talking about with some of the initial tree mortality that they're experiencing on their sites, which is sort of normal to people who plant trees, but maybe not as normal for people who haven't been through that process before. I'm not sure if that's what you were asking about, but.
Yeah.
So since it's a tree planting, we did not receive much for staff, DEC staff comments. But we scored it here, came in pretty high at 79 points out of 100. We've got the partnerships, as Hillary mentioned. Oops, here's Chris.
I'm gonna say, just because I am on the Portland Minority Board, I'm gonna abstain my vote. I am here, but everyone's clear on that.
And for the co-benefits, this one did, this one did get climate flood point. There's some erosion in this area along the road with the river eroding toward the Monument Hill Road. And then it also got a couple of the upland points as well, because this will connect into an upland area and will provide some good bird habitat and different things where sort of some species that are coming from other areas can use this land as well. It gets full marks for the surface water, just like the other project did, which was also stream restoration project. A point for pollution prevention because it's draining ag lands. Ag lands will drain into this buffer. It gets an environmental justice sort of local economic importance point, because I think this farm, as it works more with partners and receives more assistance, I think that'll be beneficial to the farm. And we're working with sort of a landowner who hasn't worked much with partners. So I thought that was maybe an important piece to nut flag. And then the sort of community benefit piece too. This project was listed in the Castleton Headwaters Stormwater Master Plan. It was flagged for this river needing a buffer. And also the exclusion fence, which comes along with it. The fence is already installed.
So those were 9 points out of 20 on top of the 70.
Exactly.
And that's it for the slides again, Erin.
So,
Was there a
good.
picture? Did we miss the picture, Barbara? Did we go past it already? Or is there more?
Yeah, I went by it real fast.
Okay, so this also probably would, once it's planted, it should revert back to wetland and this, so this is prior converted ag land, which means that without a planting here, they can just keep, basically they can keep grazing it, because it's already being used for pasture. But this farm is retiring these 2.6 acres. Once we plant it, it won't be able to be used as pasture again. So this is like a true sort of land conversion that I think is, what A&R looks for when they're counting the phosphorus credits. But this is a nice site and that I think it will go back to being a nice wetland. Hopefully that we will help it evolve back toward that state.
So Hillary, do I understand correctly that by planting a field that's prior converted, you're taking it out of that designation and and per wetland rules, it can't be converted again? So it's like an in perpetuity protection of that land from reverting back to or from being converted to agriculture again?
We were just talking about this at the office, Shane, and that's what we believe.
So that's much better than a 15-year O&M agreement, right?
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, I don't know that you can't. Yeah, I guess it would depend on the wetland if it turns into something that's considered class 2 that couldn't be grazed again. But like nature will have to take its course, but it will lose its prior converted status.
So you couldn't come back in and stump it again. Like my understanding is you can go into wetland and you can harvest the trees from that wetland, but going in and stumping it, that's when you get into the violation scenario. So yeah, it's just interesting because if you get so many credits for a 15-year O&M plan, I wonder, like in these scenarios are probably very far and few between, but it's got a much longer lifespan, this project, I guess, guaranteed lifespan. I don't know. Just thinking out loud, nothing really concrete there.
I mean, it's hard because people do things and you can't always predict what they're going to do, but the farmer is of the opinion that this is done. This is a done deal. This is going to be a natural place.
Yeah. Okay.
If there's any other questions or anything, otherwise we can make a motion.
I would just offer that looking at the site map, the aerial photo, and I know the landowner perspective might not coincide with this thought, but it looks like there's an opportunity for even additional stream restoration work there. And maybe enhancing that floodplain by engaging, putting some structure in the stream and increasing the engagement of the stream with the floodplain. But I know there's a lot more to think about that, but maybe looking at projects in the future, just thinking along those lines a little bit.
Yeah. They are considering doing more. And I think it's hard because there's crap and we have to be a little careful which projects we fund because of that. The crap could fund some of this. So they're not interested in that right now, but the folks that run that program have been to this site. And I think if this goes well, that would sort of open the door for potentially what you're talking about, Shane, like maybe some woody addition work, and then also probably like they might move forward with a bigger buffer project working upstream with crap through crap.
Yeah. Great. Sounds great. Are we waiting?
You want to make a motion, Shane?
Yeah, are we waiting for a motion to approve that project?
Yes.
Okay, I will move to approve the project as presented.
I'll second that. All in favor, your hands.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And we have Katie Crumley abstaining. Very good. Yay, more projects. And I guess if that's it for our review, that leaves us open to the public comment, if we have any public to comment. Or we look forward to our next meeting in December.
Yeah, I'll try to give you some dates earlier in the month, since it is December, but that will be our next quarterly meeting.
Dan, Dan had a project idea and I drove by where you recommended and I could sort of see what you were talking about. And I'm curious if you want we could do this outside of this meeting, but what I was going to say was everybody bring a project. And then I thought, well, Dan brought a project. So if that landowner is amenable, we could set up a site visit.
I'll check in.
Okay.
It's a spot just west of 73 and 22A in Orwell. It's a spot called Old Foundry Road, and it loops around and connects twice to 73. And shortly down the Old Foundry Road, there's a couple of pretty significant areas of erosion that have happened, and it leads right down into East Creek. So it's a fairly direct connection to Lake Champlain. There definitely is erosion in there. There's dumping that's happened. It's kind of an old used agriculture area. So it is, to me, it's one of the few spots that I say, oh yeah, there's a good opportunity to do some stabilization work there. And so it's worth exploring. So definitely I can talk to Hillary at another time on this, and then we can see what we can do about working with the landowner.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dan. And Chris.
This didn't come up as a topic, but before I sign off, I wanted to just put a spotlight on the cost rate methodology that we just released. It's a bundle of words, but in its simplest form, it's a formula that calculates how you all convert the dollars that you get into a target. It also actually kind of helps us apportion, when we get a pot of money in a given year, the different amounts of money between the different QISPs and the different basins. So at the very end of that document, there is the table for how this affects the basins. And for South Lake, your original target for the last 3 years was 216 kilograms, and the new number is now 124 kilograms. So that's a 43% decrease. And then when you add in the grant money that's been appropriated, but you haven't yet seen it because we've been waiting on this to be released for this coming year, the current fiscal year that we're in, that ends June 30th, 2026, that raises your target to 154.2 kilograms. So still well below what you were thinking your target would be at 216. So just wanted to highlight that. I also want to highlight that the amount of funding that is slated to come to you next year is also going to be lower because of a rejiggering from, as I just discussed, from one basin to another. And I think the developed lands sector is getting more emphasis on it. And so that, I think, affected your basin a little bit. So the dollar amount has gone down to around 780,000 with this new formula. So if you have it, it's a long document, it's pretty complicated. It's based on, what we've seen for costs and what's happening in the basin. So it's a little technical. I'm not sure if you'll have too many public comments, but I just wanted to highlight that for you. And if you're able to dive into that and take a look, please do. And shout out to my colleagues, Ben Copins and Claire Madden. Claire is in the Clean Water Initiative program, and Ben is a basin planner watershed planner like Angie. And he is a planner up in the Memph Basin and northern part of the Connecticut. And they've put a lot of analytical energy into this. Great, and thanks for all your work. Thanks for what you're doing here, and Shane, thanks for your questions. Appreciate it. I would love to get to yes and gullies too, and it's not, if it's helpful, it's not a no forever. It's just because they're complicated, it's hard to get to yes in an easy fashion. And so maybe we'll get to yes on some gully types. In the meantime, I think Hillary sees an opportunity to do work on this particular project you just voted on. So hoping we can deal with the water in a different way on that side.
Thanks, Chris. I didn't mean to be critical of the policy. I was trying to understand it, and I was looking at the policy the other day, and I was just trying to understand it.
You can be critical. That's fine. I'll just spin it around and say, I'll try and explain it as best I can, being the generalist that I am, and Angie too, would do the best we can. And yeah, it's confusing when you're not inside and you're now hearing it secondhand or third hand. I'm not the one writing these policies, so just try to do my best to interpret it for you and help you through it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
I
Great.
feel like too, this is like so late in the conversation that I shouldn't even say it, but the part of the nuance at this site too is that like some of the ag sites could use NRCS funds, but because this field isn't actively being farmed anymore, they don't qualify. So there's that other piece too, that like for ag lands, there are ag programs that may be able to address it, except not here. So
yeah.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
yeah, great meeting.
Thank you, Chris.
Is that it for the agenda, Erin?
I think that's it. Kind of a short one today.
That was a clean little agenda.
Try to bring more projects next time.
Yeah, I know. It helped being little. The agenda.
Right. Bring the projects. All right.
Well, cool.
Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
then I guess we can adjourn the meeting at 4:13.
Thanks, Rob, for coming in by phone.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your meeting and a great day on Saturday.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Bye, all.
Everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, all.
Hey, Barbara, are you done? Stop recording?
Stop recording and transcript.